Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we will integrate a software as a service database into our application. And from the title and thumbnail of this video, I'm guessing you already know the product I am talking about. Firebase Firestore is a great NoSQL database which is offered as a service. It allows us to focus entirely on the front-end application, leaving the database setup and management up to Firebase. In today's video, we will integrate Firebase into an existing React application I've already set up. Okay. However, I'm going to quickly walk you through the project setup before we begin integrating it with Firebase. So let's take a look at the major talking points for today's video, starting with the project walkthrough. We're going to see how we can set up Firebase config. Then we are going to see how we can create a record. We're going to see how we can retrieve multiple records. And last but not the least, we're going to see how we can retrieve a single record. Okay. So if you think that's a great idea, then absolutely smash that like button. Ensure you subscribe to the channel so you can get access to all of our videos in the future as they drop. Well, let's dive into what we have for today, starting with the project walkthrough, okay? So let me quickly walk you through this template, okay? What I've got here is a React template that I've generated with V, and I'm just going to briefly walk you through it. So as usual with all React projects, we have our non-modules folder, we have our public folder, we have our src folder. You can see our git ignore file, you can see the eslinks.config.js file, you can see the index.html file, you can see the package.json file, you can see the package.log.json file, you can see the readme.md file, and there's a vit.config.js file, okay? But all of this, we're not really interested in all of this. What we are really interested in is this src folder, okay? So let me open up that folder. Inside of that folder, you can see that we have a components folder, have an app.js file, and a main.jsx file, okay? So let me start with the main.jsx file. As usual, this is the entry point into all React application. You can see that we are importing strict mode from React, create root from React DOM client, then we import our app from app.js, then we use all of that to create a new React APK. This is standard with all React projects. If you've worked React to a certain extent, then you should understand this. Now we have our app.js file. Let's look at that file shortly. You can see that inside this app.js file, first we are importing addAnimalModel from components /addAnimalModel. Then we import the animal card from components /animal card. Then we import the animal model from components /animal model. Then we import the header for components /header. Now we import use states and create context from React. And we are creating a context here, animal context, which we are exporting from this file. And inside of the React component, that is the app component, we create two stateful variables. First, we create the open animal model and the function for updating it, which we name the update open animal model, and by default is going to be false. Under that, we are creating another stateful variable, open add animal model, and the function for updating that stateful variable is the show open add animal model, okay? And by default is going to be false. Now we use that animal context we created earlier to wrap our component, okay? You can see that we have the animal context of provider and passing that stateful variables we created earlier. That is the open animal model, you update open animal model, the open add animal model, and the show open add animal model. We pass them as values to this context, and inside the context we are nesting the header file. After the header file, we have a div and we nest the animal card inside of it. Under that, there we conditionally render at the animal model. That is, the open animal model stateful variable has to be true, and the open add animal model stateful variable has to be false for the animal model to show. Then the open add animal model has to be true, and the open animal model has to be false for the add animal model to show, okay? So now let's go into that components folder and take our time to look at all of these components one by one, okay? Starting with the add animal model, okay? This component allows us to add an animal. You can see that we are using Tailwind CSS and we have a lot of long names, okay? So don't really worry about it. Just what you should know that inside this add animal model, you have an animal form, and this is the form that is responsible for adding animals, okay? So let me navigate into that form so you see what it looks like, okay? You can see that this is our form. You can add your name, you can add your scientific name here. We can add their scientific name. We can also add their description, the description for the animal. We can select an image we want to upload. We can also select the secondary image here. Then we can add subspecies to that, and each subspecies has a name and a scientific name. We have a species image, right? Here we can add an image for that subspecies, and we have a button for adding that subspecies, which is this. And finally, we have a button at the end of the form that allows us to submit all the data we have entered to create a new animal form. Okay, now let's look at this animal card. Now this animal card displays basic details about the animal, like the animal's name, the animal scientific name here, and then a short description about the animal class. And this component is also supposed to display the animal image. Okay, sharp. You can now see that we have, let's look at the animal model file. So this animal model file is a model that allows us to view extra details about the animal when we click on it. Okay, and you can see this model displays the name of the animal here. You can see that the model also displays the scientific name of the animal. Then it gives us space for us to see the description of the animal, right? Then we have our model image, and then we have our species card. So let's look at our model image component. So this model image just displays an image of an animal, okay? And this is showing up anytime we pull up the animal model, okay? So back into the animal model, you can see that we have our species card. Let's look at our species card. Our species card just displays subspecies of a particular animal. Okay, we have the image of that animal, and then we have the name of that subspecies. Okay, so the last component we have to look at here is this header.js file, and this header.js file is just a basic header, okay, that has a title for our app, Marine Life Explorer. Then we have a button that allows us to open the animal model. We have another button for us to preview animals that you have selected as favorites. Okay, what I'm going to do next is to go ahead and run npm run dev so that we can preview this template from our browser to see what it looks like. Okay, now that this template is up and running, open up a browser window, and I'm going to navigate to localhost 5173, okay, to see what our application looks like. Nice, our application now is now up and running, and you can see that we have our header with the Marine Life Explorer. Like I said, you can see the button for pulling up the add animal model. You can see the favorite button. Now you can see the animal card component. Okay, so now let me go ahead and press this button to pull up the add animal model. Okay, I can see that we get a nice animal model. Okay, just like I said, you see the space to enter the name of the animal, scientific name, the description. You can select 2 images to add to this animal, and this is the field for selecting those 2 images. And then we can add subspecies. Okay, subspecies name, subspecies scientific name, and subspecies image. And then we have this button for adding the subspecies. And finally, we have this big button at the end of the model where we can submit this form. Okay, so let me go ahead and close this form. Now we have this animal card. So I'm going to click on this animal card so you see what the animal model looks like. I can see this is the nice animal model. Okay, this is the title of the animal. This is the scientific name, this is the description, this is the image of the animal, and then this is the image of the species of that animal. Okay, that is subspecies. Everything is looking nice. We already built this template in the previous video where I showed you how to get started learning HTML and CSS by building a project. If you missed that video, you can go and watch it so you can get more understanding about how we come with this template. Okay, just extending this template to show you how we can get started integrating Firebase Firestore into our application. Okay, so if that makes sense, please leave this video a like and subscribe to the channel. So let's move on into integrating Firebase Firestore into this project. Let's set up Firebase config. The next thing I will do is to open up a terminal and install Firebase using npm. I'll copy the Firebase config object directly from Firebase console, and inside of VS Code, I will create a new file named firebase.js and paste in the Firebase config I just copied. I'll replace the get auth import statement at the top of the file with get firestore from firebase/firestore. Then I'll replace the call to the get auth function with the call to get firestore. Okay, I forgot to change the name of the variable we are exporting as database object, but I'm going to do so shortly. Okay, now let's create a file named helper.js. Inside this file, we will create and export a function named CreateAnimal, which accepts a single argument animal. Inside the function, we will add a try catch block. In the catch block, I will return an array where the first item is an error object, while the second item is null. You know how we roll over here. In the try block, we will create a new variable, payload, which is equal to the result of calling await addDoc. The addDoc function can be imported from Firebase Firestore. This addDoc function accepts a reference to a collection. The collection reference can be created by importing and calling the collection function from Firebase Firestore. This function accepts a database object as its first argument, and as such, we will go back to change the export const auth statement to export const db. Then we'll head back to the helper file, pass in this db as the database object to the collection function, then pass in the animal object as the second argument to the addDoc function. We will return an array with null as the first item because obviously there are no errors, while the payload will be the second item in the array. I will head to the src/components/animalform.jsx file where I will import useref from React, and inside the animal form component, I will create a formRef object by storing the result of calling the useref hook inside of this formRef we just created, okay? Then I will set the ref attribute on the form with an ID of AnimalForm to be the formRef object we just created. I will create a function handle submit. Then I will create a stateful variable is loading. I will modify the handle submit function to accept an event argument e. And inside of this function, I will call e.prevent default and then set is loading to true. I will destructure add the animal name from the form, followed by the scientific name, then the animal description, followed by the primary image, then the secondary image, which I incorrectly named secondary name. Oops, that's my bad. We'll pause with this function implementation so we can process what happens when the user clicks on the add species button. I will declare a new function handle add species, and inside of this function, first we'll set is loading to true, then we will destructure add the species name, the scientific name, and the species image, and pause with this function implementation. I'll create a new stateful variable which is an array of species objects. We will continue with the handle add species function where we will call the set species function with an array. We will spread the existing species array into this and add a new species object at the beginning of the array. Then I will clear the respective form field so we can add a new species and set is loading to false. Then I'll set the onClick attribute of the add species button to be the handle add species function we just created. So let's continue with the handle submit function implementation. I'll destructure out the error and the payload returned from calling the CreateAnimal function, which can be imported from the helper file. If there are any errors returned from calling the function, we will fire an alert with the message error adding animal while logging that animal out to the console. If the animal is created successfully, then we want to alert the user that the animal was added successfully while logging the animal to the console. Then we'll set the onSubmit attribute of the form to be the handle submit function. We'll set the disabled property on the add species button to be the variable is loading. And we'll also use this is loading state variable to show the user a loading state on the button when trying to add a new species. We'll also do so for submit animal button. We'll go back to the handle submit function call where we will add the species to the object we pass to the CreateAnimal function, and in fact I will modify the add subspecies header and add a class of flex justify center and item center to it while displaying the length of the species we've added. Then we'll add a new form field modal description. This allows us to provide a more detailed description to be shown in the modal. Then I will ensure we also the structure adds this modal description from the form in the handle submit function implementation. I just realized that I don't need the species scientific name, so I'm going to get rid of that form field. Then we'll wrap the add subspecies text with a span element while adding another span element on the same level with a text that corresponds to the length of the subspecies array. Then I'll head over to the handle add species function implementation to remove the species scientific value since we don't have that form field anymore. Now let's try to add an animal. I'll open up a browser tab to preview the app. Then I'll click on the plus icon to add a new animal. I'll give this animal a name of dolphin. The scientific name will be Delphinus delphis. I'll copy and paste in the modal description, and from the modal description I'll copy and paste in the short description. I'll copy and paste in the primary and secondary image. Observe that I'm just pasting in the link to the file because it is sitting in this project. Okay, we already have those images in this project, so there's no need for me to go and implement a way for you to upload images. Okay, I would have shown you how to upload images to Firebase storage, but that is now behind a paid firewall. Okay, so we need to think smart. We'll add a species with the name bottlenose dolphin while paste in the link to the image, and you can see that we have one species added. I'll add another species, spinner dolphin. I'll also copy and paste in the image, and you can observe that we now have two species. I'll add a third species, common dolphin, while paste in the link to that image and click on the add species button. You can see that we have now added 3 species. Let's add the final one, orca, which is a killer whale, and paste in the link to that image. I click on the add species button, and you can see that we get a loading state, then an alert. Then I'll click on the submit animal button. I can see that we get a short loading state and then an alert that reads animal added successfully. Now let's try to fetch all existing animals we've added to the database. I'll head back to VS Code and navigate to the helper file where I will define and export a new function, get animals. This is an async function, and inside this function we will add a try catch block. In the try block, we will create a query snapshot, which is just a variable that stores the result of querying the Firebase Firestore database using the getDocs function, which can be imported from Firebase Firestore. This accepts a collection reference as its first argument, and this represents the collection to query. Then I'll loop over the documents in the query snapshot variable, and for each of the documents we return an animal object by calling the data function on each object. Then we'll attach the ID of the document to the animal object. Then we'll return an array from this function where the first item is a null object as there are no errors, and the second item is the animals array. Then I'll head to the animal card component and define some props on it. It will have a name prop, a scientific name prop, a description, and an image prop. Then I'll head to the app.js file where I will create a new stateful variable, animals, which is an array. The function for updating the stateful variable is the setAnimals function. Then I'll add a use effect hook, and inside of it I will define a new function, getAnimals. Inside this function, I will attempt to import and call the getAnimals function while extracting out the error and the payload. If there are any errors while trying to retrieve the animals, we will fire an alert, error getting animals, and console log the error. Otherwise, if the payload is retrieved successfully, we want to call the setAnimals function with the payload. Then we loop through the animal stateful variable, and for each animal, we want to render out an animal card. We'll pass the animal as a prop to the animal card while using the index of each animal as a key. We could also use the ID of the animal if that's what we want. Let's navigate to the animal card component where we change the description prop to animal description, although we'd still call it description in this file. Now let's work on the animal model component. I'll open up the app.js file. I'll declare a new stateful variable named selected animal. We'll add along an update selected animal function to update the value of the selected animal. Then I'll pass 2 of them as properties. On the object, we pass to the value property of the animal context.provider. I'll navigate to the components/animalcard.jsx where I will accept an ID prop on the animal card component. I will extract out the update selected animal function from the animal context and use it to update the selected animal with the ID of the animal. I'll head back to the animal model component where I will extract out the selected animal property from animal context and declare a stateful variable animal with a dispatch function setAnimal. Now let's pause first. You might be asking yourself, why am I doing this? Declaring so many stateful variables. Maybe we could instead declare one stateful variable animal which you can extract from the dashboard context, and it makes sense, right? This stateful variable animal will be an animal object that we could utilize inside of this model. However, in your app, this will not be a model. This will be a separate page, and you will not have access to the records you fetched in a previous page. So this is just to show you how to fetch single records, okay? And also to show you how to evaluate your own code as you write. Now I will declare a use effect hook, then head over to the helper file where I will declare and export a new async function, animal. Inside of this function, I will add a try catch block. Then ensure that we accept an ID argument inside this function. I'll create a variable doc which stores a Firebase Firestore document. This is gotten from calling the getDoc function, which is imported from Firebase Firestore. This function accepts a document reference which can be created by calling the doc function, which is also imported from Firebase Firestore. The doc function accepts 3 arguments: a DB argument, which is a Firestore database object, a string, which is the name of the collection to search for, and another string, which is the ID of the document. I will ensure that the document exists in a database before trying to return it. Otherwise, I will return an error object with a message document not found. Doc.exist is a function, so I'll call it accordingly and rename the function to getAnimal because it makes more sense. Then I'll head over to the animal model component where I will attempt to retrieve the animal by calling the getAnimal function with the selected animal. If there are any errors returned from the function, I'll fire an alert with the message error getting animal and console log the error. If there's any animal with that ID, then I will call setAnimal to update the animal with the payload, okay? Then I will use the animal object to update the h2 where I have the name of the animal with animal.name. And that's my bad, okay? Because this is supposed to be animal.animal name. However, we are going to sort this out. Just pay attention. Then I will display the animal.scientific name. I'll also display the animal.modal display. Then I'll display the name of the animal where we have the section for species. I'll look through the animal.species, and for each species, I will render out the species card component. I will set the name prop on the species card to be the species.species name, and the URL will be the species.species image, and the key will be the index of each species. We need to head to the helper file to fix a variable name conflict. This is because we declared a variable doc in this file, and we are importing a function named doc inside of this file from Firebase Firestore. I will change the variable name to docref. Now let's display the modal images for the first modal image. I will set the modal image property to be the animal.primary image. I'll add another modal image with a modal image prop, which is equal to animal.secondary image. If I head back to the browser, you can see the beautiful looking UI. Now let's try adding another animal. Its name will be octopus. I will copy and paste in the scientific name, the modal description, and the description. I will copy and paste in the primary and secondary image. I will add the first subspecies with a name of common octopus while copying and pasting in its image. I will add another species, blue ring octopus, with its image. I will add a third species, giant Pacific octopus, with its image, and then I will add a fourth species, mimic octopus, with its image. I will go ahead and click on the submit marine animal button to create this animal, and you can see that we get an alert, animal added successfully. Let's head back to VS Code to ensure that we close the modal when we are done inside of the addAnimalForm. Then I will head back to the browser, then refresh. You can see that we now have two cards. Oops, they have the same image, so we need to sort that out by heading to the animal card component. I will change the image prop to primary image on the animal card while maintaining this image variable in this file, so I don't have to go where I'm using it to change it. Then I will change the name prop to animal name and head back to the browser. You will get the appropriate images for each card, okay? If I click on the octopus card, you can see that we get the beautiful octopus modal, but the name of the octopus is missing, so we need to fix that by heading to the animal modal component and changing the animal.name to animal.animal name. See, I told you would fix it. There's so much more you could do with this app. If you observe the UI carefully, you see that we have a favorite button on each animal card, and there's a big heart button next to the plus button, okay? Putting two and two together, you can figure out that if we have user authentication in place, we could add advanced queries to find animals that have been selected as favorites by a user, and so much more. I didn't get to show you how to update and delete records, so make sure you absolutely smash that like button and ensure you subscribe to the channel so you won't miss that video. And I'm going to see you in the next one, guys.